I often think that politics would be better if it was a lot of just drunken death matches.
This is going to sound out of left field in the beginning, but the last time I heard anything about Sarah Palin was probably like many years ago. But
did she not die?
What the story was? No, she's alive, I believe.
Oh, I just assumed she died.
The story was about how her redneck family in Alaska got into this huge, massive inter-family brawl and had to be broken up by the police.
Yes, awesome. I remember this.
It was just so. I mean, it was just like a Jerry Springer episode with 300 people all punching each other.
She could have been our first lady.
Yeah, shame.
Isn't that so awesome? She opened the doors for the Donald Trump movement. She opened the doors with the Republican Party's willingness to flirt with that nativism that was brewing at the roots. And she became vice president on the ticket. She got as close as you could possibly get.
Right.
And then still, it isn't worth a goddamn thing. She got Tim Kaine. Her sons are in the north fucking moose for the rest of their lives. Allegedly, in Minecraft, parody, on action. That would be awesome if I got sued by the estate of Sarah Palin after her family dies of a avalanche or whatever happens up there.
I guess a moose would be easy to fuck, though. They're one of the only animals that can't walk backwards. I don't know if you guys know that about moose. Yeah, moose can't walk backwards, so you don't have to worry about them walking back into you and crushing you.
Dude, you might teach a moose to walk backwards if you try to fuck it. You might be the cause of a new evolutionary thing.
That'd be cool. I've always wanted to succeed at something in my life.
Exactly.
Now I have
a
purpose.
After you.
You might also become the main subject of a new documentary called Zoo 2.0, where you get your get split in half by a fucking moose.
Moose Man.
Oh no, dude, it's a documentary, but it's Werner Herzog. It's called Moose Man. It's just you fucking moose instead of you being up there loving the bears from afar or whatever.
Well, why do you do this? I want to teach it to walk backwards.
Yes, my motives are pure. I'm a man of science. But the doc just opens with Werner Herzog doing the same thing he did while listening to the Grizzly Man tapes, but he's just no one should ever watch this documentary.
And it's slightly obscured him clearly at a moose, but you cannot see from it's blocked by a wire. Yes, perfect. Oh my god. Well, we've written our first script, boys. We're out of the podcasting game. We're in the movies.
Can't wait to move to Hollywood. Or
exactly.
Alaska. I guess we're doing all this in Alaska.
No, we'll do it all in Bollywood. We'll make it happen.
He walked out in the gray light and stood, and he saw for a brief moment the absolute truth of the world. The cold, relentless circling of the intestate earth. Darkness implacable. The blind dogs of the sun in their running. The crushing black vacuum of the universe. And somewhere 200 animals trembling like ground foxes in their cover. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it.
And lo, for the earth was empty of form, and void, and darkness was all over the face of the deep, and we said, look at that fucker dance.
Welcome to Heat Death of the Universe. It is Sunday, January 24th, year of our Lord 2021. It is 11:15 a.m. Korea Standard Time. We have some special guests today from the BDS. You know the one, the Boomer Death Squad one. The most famous of all the BDSs.
Woo, yeah, woohoo! We're the BDS that Andrew Yang is not making illegal in the state of New York.
Holy shit,
Hello,
I was going to bring that
up. You guys just need an M. Just some M to add to your name.
You guys want to give a quick voice ID?
Yeah, absolutely. We're here from the Boomer Death Squad podcast. Like we said, I'm Joe.
I'm Danny. We have a third co-host, Matt, who is actually a frontline hero, and he's out saving the world right now at his job.
Yeah,
so
he's out there right now throwing away vaccines of the COVID.
Yeah,
he's throwing away all of the Corona cure to save America. So
that's good.
He'll be on shortly to talk about that.
Yeah, he'll drop in shortly.
Okay, let's get into the history lesson.
Okay.
All right.
So
let's go. You're a teacher. Let's hear it.
Teach us, lecture us.
So much pressure. No, I'm not going to lecture you. I want you to jump in constantly here.
We signed up for lectures.
That's all I got. It's a sigh. So, Monopoly, ever heard of it?
Yes,
You're talking,
I have.
You're talking about...
I'm talking about the game.
Yeah, they sell it at 7-Eleven now. I still don't have a copy of it because I got into a fight with a friend over it when I was 6, and I haven't played it since.
It's fucking
I've just
awful.
never liked it. I just never thought it was fun.
I went
But
to
it
the
took too
hospital
long.
because of Monopoly.
All right, let's hear this.
Alright.
So when I was like...
You ate all the pieces.
No, when I was 6, you know the thimble piece? I somehow got the thimble piece stuck in my ear because I put it in my ear.
That's almost as dumb as what I just joked about.
And I had to go to the ER to where they had to like not surgically remove, but get these like doctor tweezers and reach deep into my ear because somehow I'd wedged it to where like my mom or my fingers couldn't get a grip on it. It was like real deep down in my ear. And they had to pull this Monopoly piece out of my ear. That's my memory of Monopoly whenever I think of it. Is that thimble can just get stuck in your ear. Don't put it in your ear, guys.
That, my friends, is the history of Monopoly. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, of course, everyone knows the game. Yeah, it seems to be a source of like out of like all the board games, it seems to be the one that I feel like people have stories about getting into like heated arguments.
It's
and
terrible.
fights over.
It's the worst game ever made.
Yeah.
And it's very true. My personal experience with it is just that my dad, who is like, he wants to be like a rich guy, but isn't.
Right.
Everyone's dad. Yeah, makes
definitely
sense.
loves capitalism. He would like brutally like crush me and my brother in Monopoly even when we were like super young. He'd just be like, actually I'm just veering into like a Louis C.K. bit here. He has a bit about that, like just destroying his daughters at Monopoly. So I kind of lived that as well. But even to this day, yeah, I think the last time I played it was probably a few years ago. Yeah, the old man was exactly the same. He'd just get hyper serious about it and just try to ruin his family. And this
Amazing.
fake money.
Amazing.
I was never very good at it, and I just didn't really like it.
Nah, me neither. Have you ever played Catan?
I love Catan.
Oh, Catan is...
We call it socialist monopoly around here. I mean, Catan is the perfect board game, and it deserves to pass Monopoly, which I think it eventually did in sales.
It might have passed Monopoly at this point.
Socialist Monopoly, or Monopoly Socialism Edition does exist, though, legitimately.
Yeah,
Well-
but it's just like something like, you give away all your money to win.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy, folks?
Yeah.
I think
but
the original...
I saw it at Target.
Wait. So it's meant to be like take like I was about to sound British, taking the piss out of socialism.
I suppose.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay.
It's supposed to be making fun of socialism the whole time, and the whole point is that you lose money every time you make money. Like you lose more than you make or something.
Well,
and it's real. Like you can purchase it. They sell it in stores, and you can purchase it.
Oh,
but
I
it's
totally
like a
believe
joke.
it. I mean,
it's like you can't really play it.
I mean, the game as we know it today is, of course, like obvious propaganda. So why wouldn't they just go further and have like anti-socialist, like purely anti-socialist propaganda too?
That's the thing, though, is because like this just wades into straight propaganda. Like it's not even, they're not masking it in any way at all. Like,
yeah, it also seems like the only people I could imagine playing that would just be the worst people in the world, who would just be like
losers.
Laughing like, huh, isn't this dumb? Socialism's dumb.
I'm having.
Are you guys really having fun doing this?
It exists for Turning Point USA parties.
Yes.
Like,
Exactly.
that's where something like that kills. You
Yeah,
know?
I can
imagine the Koch brothers sit down for nice family evenings.
Yeah, they prop
Exactly.
up the dead one in a chair, and they have a good time.
Exactly. At the local date rape convention, it's the most popular attraction. Like,
Socialist monopoly is a good jumping off point here, considering we haven't really jumped off yet. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about here in a second, though. So, Monopoly, we've covered our personal experiences with it, but let's start with the what I'll call the foundational myth about Monopoly, how it was invented.
Right.
So, and this is the myth that like the Monopoly. Or the Parker Brothers, Hasbro, whoever owns it now, they'll still tell you this story. So the story goes that a man named Charles Darrow invented Monopoly in 1935. It was like the height of the Great Depression. He was poor and jobless. And it's supposed to be this uplifting story. The man who pulled himself up by his bootstraps and created this amazing game that like instantly became like a huge seller. Like it was super popular in the Depression, which is wild to think about.
yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing sort of important to note is that Parker Brothers Company was like basically just about to go out of business, like because it was the Depression and people didn't feel like playing fucking board games, or didn't have the money to buy them.
I've been finding myself playing more games during this coronavirus.
You're not. You're not in the Dust Bowl, man.
I'm not depressed. Well, I'm not that sort of depressed, at least.
And so yeah, this company like immediately like bought up the game, and the guy just got rich, and that's the story, the feel-good story.
Yeah.
And the company actually, like, part of the reason it became such a big seller was because of this mythic story that they would, I don't know exactly if they printed it, like, with the game, but enough people knew about the story behind it.
I think it's printed in the rule book.
Yeah. I think they started doing that at some point.
Still today?
Yeah, I think
Oh, it's
I don't know
somewhere.
I don't know about today. I did see. All right, so I watched. I'll talk about this more in detail later. But I watched this insanely shitty documentary about Monopoly put out by Monopoly in 2010, and it was like if you've ever seen a mockumentary, it plays like that, but it genuinely isn't. It's real. It's like,
wow.
I'll talk about it a little bit more, but the oh fuck! What were we just talking about?
Well, the story of the Charles Darrow, like
right. So they do talk about like that story was a misconception, but they really sort of just go over the details really quickly, just like
okay, so they're like downplaying it.
They acknowledge it because like legally they kind of have to, but it's still like. They still lean into the fake story.
Yeah, it's interesting too because we're like probably the most mainstream thing to come out that's like talked about the true origins of the game is this book. That's the basis of basically everything I'm going to be talking about here is this book called The Monopolists, written by Mary Pallon. And she did like 5 years of like deep research into it. And when it came out in like 2015, it kind of made the rounds of like I don't know, like NPR, and like she did a talk at Google, which is hilarious, like trashing monopolies at the Google campus. But anyway, so this idea of like why the game sold so well, like being like you can attribute it in some part to this, what we're gonna find out is a totally false story. I mean, it does make me wonder, and I open the question to the floor: why would so many people in the Great Depression want to play this game? And I guess I sort of have answered it by saying that it's like this inspirational story. But I mean, like, how do you guys see that?
You know that famous quote, right? That many Americans, your father, my father, everyone's father included, who is a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, right?
The Steinbeck quote, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Just, if you had gotten one less haircut or eaten one less chai latte, soy, whatever, you would be a millionaire.
And it's also like...
I love blaming a single haircut on your financial downturn.
No, that's what it was in the past, in like the 18th or 19th centuries. It was like, frivolously getting haircuts and wasting your money at the barber.
That's how the Carnegies got so rich. Never a single haircut.
Exactly. They all looked like Led Zeppelin.
I think that the Depression thing kind of has a role in it, in that like people were poor as shit and they wanted to LARP a little bit and pretend they weren't.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense too. Just like, just escapism,
man.
But it's like,
exactly.
There's something so twisted about it because it's Monopoly, which is like, at its heart, like its ideology is so fucking like ruthless and cruel.
Yeah.
Like the point is to ruin everyone around you.
Exactly. It was designed with the idea that it teaches you that, wow, this isn't fun and monopolies are bad and we shouldn't let this happen. But instead it teaches you, look at the absolute power you have as a god. This is awesome and all men should have it.
Right. Yeah. It really... Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. It really, like, I don't know, I think it says a lot about, I mean, we could say the American psyche, but I'm sure, like, Monopoly's fairly international nowadays, I think.
Yes, no, it is. There's like a world championship every year.
Yeah, they do. I didn't realize till recently that, there are, like, tournaments and stuff. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I
can't wait for the Netflix series Monopoly Gambit.
Amazing.
So, then we should talk about the true origins, then.
Yes.
We have this figure, Lizzy Magie, who... I should mention, just for posterity or whatever, Jason and I tried to do an episode on this for our first podcast episode, and we just kind of left it in the trash because, first episode, it just didn't go as well as we wanted it to. But so now this is the redemption episode. And we also didn't know how to pronounce this lady's name. We kept calling her Maggie.
I was doing the same thing when I was reading.
Because the spelling's weird, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's only one G, folks.
It's Magie. So Lizzy Magie.
Scottish.
Lizzy Magie from Scotland. I think she was from around DC. So she, I guess I should explain what kind of person she was. So Lizzy Magie was an outlier for her time, perhaps even by some more contemporary standards.
Yeah.
She invented and patented various things. For example, when she was 26, she patented a typewriter modification that allowed paper to pass through the rollers more easily.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because one of her main gig was being a stenographer. But during this point in history, women were credited with less than 1% of all patents, so it was kind of unusual for her to have any patents at all.
Yeah.
She was kind of a Renaissance woman. She was a writer, poet, comedian, actress, engineer. And her views on class and gender were basically scandalous, especially at that time. Some people might consider them scandalous now, even.
I was going to say, she'd absolutely be canceled for putting class before race or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her father was like a staunch anti-monopolist, right? You could like argue, at least for his time, which was like he was like a big abolitionist. When he was active politically, I think it was like before the Civil War and afterwards. I could be wrong there, but
no, that's right. He actually he traveled around with Lincoln during like the Lincoln Douglas debates and stuff.
Yeah, and he was like in favor of redistributive economics, and also like he said that workers should own 100% of what they create, and all nature should be public. I mean, for the time, this guy's.
I mean, even now, people would say that shit.
Yeah. I'd fucking vote for him. Holy shit!
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what her father's job was, but so like a lot of the political beliefs that her father had and that she in turn ended up having came from this guy Henry George.
Yeah.
So it was like called Georgism, which like nobody. I mean, I didn't hear of it until I researched this stuff, but apparently it was like quite big in America at the turn of the century because it was the reaction to all the robber barons monopolizing everything.
Right. Makes sense.
And so I should also just mention she like, you know, for the time especially, like she was like a feminist, like activist, and she was an activist for these political causes as well. She would do these like performance art kind of stunts. I guess it was, she called them like the slave girl stunt, where she would pretend to be like auctioned off. It was like her way of commenting on how being a woman is like akin to being like a wage slave. And so that's pretty like wild shit for like turn of the century.
No, absolutely.
And but the Georgism thing, like the political beliefs, are important because it really informs her making this game that she ends up making. And yeah, you described it pretty well. Like, I mean, I have this long thing here. I'm definitely not going to read it. I think the too long didn't read is about Georgism was if land and only land is taxed, this will break up monopolies and give the middle class a better chance to thrive. So it was this single tax theory. Some of the people who followed it were just called like single taxers.
Right.
You know, there's some issues with it. I found out that Marx didn't like the idea, but it was like more on like a real technical level. I started reading this letter that he wrote to somebody, and my eyes just glazed over because it was like, the man understands nothing about surplus, and I was like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like. But they kind of knew of each other's work and stuff at the time.
You can't understand surplus if you've never had surplus.
Yeah, that's my issue.
Yeah.
So this is Lizzy Magie, and Lizzy Magie starts she starts designing a board game because at the time, I guess board games were like not just recreational, but they were like educational or instructive in some ways, and it was literally like her way of doing political activism. At least that's the way she saw it.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked out that way in some sense. So she invented what she called the landlord's game, which I'll just say it now is like it's Monopoly. It's Monopoly with some crucial differences.
Right. Oh.
And
we've got Matt.
There we go.
Matt has joined. He's back from the front line.
We have a breaking Boomer Death Squad update. Matt.
Now you guys are echoing now though.
What?
No, it's my
test.
Okay.
Oh.
Some reason when Matt joined the chat, my computer just decided to turn on the speaker
Oh, weird.
that I have muted.
Okay.
Now it's fine. Okay.
I don't know why that happened. But you joined the chat, Matt, and you was like, time to turn on Jason's audio. So thank you, Matt.
I think Zoom is just tripping.
Zoom's weird.
Zoom be tripping.
Oh, should we just go? Joe said just go?
Let's go.
Yeah, Joe said go.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Lizzy Magie, she made this game that was like a political statement and a sort of an educational tool in her mind about this Georgist economic philosophy where there's a single tax, it's only on land. Otherwise, everyone keeps 100% of the money they earn. Pretty radical idea for its time, as I've said probably too many times now. So she works on this game from like 1902 to 1903, and then she gets a patent on it in 1904. The date is only important for future parts of the saga here. But she wasn't really like boxing it and selling it so much as it was just getting passed around. So people like basically just, they would find out the rules to a game and write them down, and then like so a lot of these games were like even just drawn on like pieces of cloth and stuff. Like
an oral tradition, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, no, the rules were literally passed down orally, and like game boards would be shared. It was like big in like left-wing circles,
like
especially in the East, especially in the Northeast.
Right. It took off pretty sort of quickly, especially for like this kind of, I guess you call it like an underground sort of game. Yeah. Even though, she did get the patent on it, but
specifically in Philadelphia, right?
Philadelphia was one of the hubs where people liked it a lot. So that was another thing, is that the game sort of evolved in some ways. Like the main rules basically stayed the same, and one of the most important thing that distinguishes the landlord's game from what we know Monopoly to be now is that you could play in two modes. You could play in the anti-monopolist mode or the monopolist mode, and the whole point was to show how one is better than the other. And her stance was that the anti-monopolist position is superior.
I don't understand that at all.
It was literally like you could either play so everyone wins, like in the rules everybody wins, or you could play so that one person fucking ruins the fun for everybody else and is the only person to win. And when it got stolen and commercialized, of course they only wanted the part where you destroy everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, cooperative games weren't really a thing yet.
Well,
that's a bit before their time. Much like socialism is a bit before our time. We can't be cooperative yet.
Are there cooperative board games now?
Yeah, there's some really good cooperative board games.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons,
True.
if you want to call it a board game. There's this rocket launch game that I fucking love, where you just like launch a rocket and you try to help everyone. But like that pandemic game, it's cooperative. You work together.
The one we're playing now.
Yeah, the one we're playing now. That's the one.
It's so vivid and real. It's like I'm there.
VR's gotten so good.
It's the biggest MMORPG ever launched.
Yeah, it's a fucking boring one, though. You spend 99% of your time at home just watching anime. Or maybe that's me.
I mean, that would be ideal.
It builds the story, though.
Yeah, but the graphics and the frame rate?
Beautiful. I can't imagine.
That was bad. I'm sorry.
Can't imagine playing it under 240 hertz.
Okay, we cannot go down the alleyway of COVID because, I'll just start screaming about things. Let me scream about other things like board games.
Owning hospitals.
So, yeah, like Danny said, the game took off pretty much with like left-wing intellectual types in like the Northeast. Some examples of them. Let's see. Sorry. Turn around here. The True Origins, Part 2. The game had a clear connection to what Darrow, the imposter, would later get full credit for. So in her original first iteration of the game, there was like go to jail. There was public park, which was like what became free parking. But this was before cars were a big deal.
Right.
And also like Georgism had this whole thing about like land should be public and shared and whatnot.
That sounds crazy.
And and there was like, you know, the fake money, the game pieces, and like public utilities and buying up bits of real estate. So, I mean, that's monopoly. Like, I don't know how you could argue otherwise. One little interesting thing about the game pieces was that I think she didn't really create them. So, like, the reason the game pieces are so weird today in Monopoly is that people just used little knickknacks around their house for game pieces.
Yeah.
And then
I read. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just when it got picked up by Parker Brothers, you know, 30 years later, they just mimicked that, but they did it because they were just being cheap, and they were using like there was some factory in Chicago that just made like little like trinkets for like necklaces and bracelets,
like charms, right?
Yeah. And the molds were super cheap, so that was like the only reason they stuck with the kind of random little things like a horse and a hat and whatever. But so as the game did become a big hit, some of these left-wing intellectuals was a guy named Rex Tugwell, who later worked with
Rex Tugwell.
That's
Insane.
right. I literally wrote parentheses, haha, on the okay.
Of Boogie Nights fame.
Yeah. I guess he ended up being kind of a close confidant with FDR. There was like some future members of the ACLU, a guy named Scott Nearing, who apparently was a big part of like the Green movement.
Yeah.
And there was like this kind of, they called it like a single tax colony in Delaware. The game was pretty big as well. Like Upton Sinclair and all these left-wing intellectuals would like summer there and just have have big fuck party orgies apparently as well. They'd play the landlord's game and suck and fuck all summer.
That's awesome.
Okay, so a quote from Lizzy Magie about the landlord's game that gives a better idea of like what she was going for is she said, it's a practical demonstration of the present system of land grabbing with all its usual outcomes and consequences.
Right.
It might well have been called the game of life, as it contains all the elements of success and failure in the real world, and the object is the same as the human race in general seems to have, i.e. the accumulation of wealth.
Yeah.
Stick it to him, McGee.
Well, that's the real irony in this is that like her original intent was that this is realistic to life, and that's why it's so horrifying. But then now it's been co-opted to be this is like real life, which means it's constructive and good for you to learn these skills.
Right. I mean, again, like having the two modes of play is so crucial. That's the thing that completely divides her, you know. I don't even want to call it a proto version, like, because they just stole her version, which we'll get to in a second. But the huge distinction is that she had an anti-monopolist rule set for the game as well to show you exactly the difference. And the anti-monopoly version was more fun to play.
So it's like literally a capitalist psyop to make Monopoly worse.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Not even just to change its meaning and like completely dilute it, but to make it worse.
Yeah, I mean, some people like like we were saying in the beginning when we were just talking about Monopoly in general, like it's kind of just a shitty game, like despite ideology, like
Yeah.
the gameplay is just
like it's what your mom like bares her teeth, like, or grits her teeth and bears through it to play with you when you're like 5 and like can't count.
Or your dad just turns the whole board over and screams and fake money's flying everywhere and you'll never forget it for the rest of your life.
No.
So I've been
It's
told.
like the easiest game to cheat at. You can just take bills when you're setting up. Like,
but like so some people I think who don't even know about like this sort of secret history of the game, like have theorized that the game was like kind of a like a socialist psyop because it's saying like, look at how shitty it is to engage in monopolizing things because the gameplay is just so, I don't know, horrible.
You know what it reminds me of?
But the problem is so many people do like it.
Did you ever see the movie Hail Caesar?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Oh,
Yeah, so the effete communists in that who are just like stay in Hollywood creating their whatever and sneaking things in that they think will culturally make us a socialist nation. It's the same idea where it's like, come on, this is lunacy. No one ever learns anything from a game.
Except for the intellectual assholes who already get it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of the Upton Sinclairs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the metaphorical going to the people.
It's going to the orgy party, as it is.
So jump ahead 20 years. I guess in that 20 years, this game is just getting passed along and more popular, but it's still like basically kind of an underground phenomenon.
Yeah.
She has to reapply for the patent. She gets it. Okay. This is just important for, what comes up later. In 1924, she gets it, the new patent, renewed patent. By this time, there were many local variants of the game, mainly in northeastern USA. And there was a group of Quakers, oddly enough, I guess, or maybe not, I don't know, who really liked the game a lot. But one of their modifications was, well, first they were from Atlantic City, these Quakers.
Yeah.
So
We're bringing
they
it back home now.
They made all the businesses or whatever, the plots of land, like local landmarks and stuff.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the beginning of that, like customizing.
Yeah.
And also,
wow.
It crosses over into what would be the quote unquote real monopoly, or at least some of it. Anyway, they eliminated. They fixed the prices of the properties, which meant that you could no longer do auctioning, which is I guess how the original game was played. But the reason they did that is because they're Quakers. They like things to be nice and quiet. The auctioning is too noisy.
That's funny.
But then in steps Philadelphia businessman Charles Todd. He is the link.
Todd.
He is the link between the cool anti-monopoly landlords game and the pro-monopoly Monopoly game. So,
and it's a man from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yep. Blame it on
Perfect.
Philly.
Classic.
And he's not even the true villain, but he's the link here. So he was introduced to the game through these Quakers, the Quaker Atlantic City version. He designed his own kind of variant, which, everyone was doing since the beginning of this thing. I mean, it got to the point where like people weren't calling it the landlord's game anymore. They were just calling it that Monopoly game or the Monopoly game.
Yeah.
But he ran into Charles Darrow, the guy who's ultimately credited for inventing the game, him and his wife. and they invited them over for a night of dinner and playing Monopoly together, and probably some wife swapping, I'm guessing, as well. I just I got that vibe when I read the article about this, like, even like, I don't know, what, 6 months ago. It's just like some swapping going on.
Hey, come over and play board games with my wife. Wink, wink.
If you know what I mean. No,
Do not
the
pass
trolley.
go. Do not swap wives.
That was a good one.
And I'll just go this. Here's a quote from Mary Pollan's book. As the two couples sat around the board, sucking and fucking, enthusiastically rolling the dice, buying up properties, and moving their tokens around, the Todds were pleased to note that the Darrows liked the game. In fact, they were so taken with it that Charles Todd made them a set of their own and began teaching them some of the more advanced rules. The game didn't have an official name. It wasn't sold in a box, but passed from friend to friend. But everybody called it the Monopoly game. Together with other friends, they played many times. Sounds like more orgy stuff. One day, despite all of his exposure to the game, Darrow, who was unemployed and desperate for money to support his family, asked Charles Todd for a written copy of the rules. Todd was slightly perplexed, as he had never written them up, nor did it appear that written rules existed elsewhere. So this goes to the idea of, like, this was, like, passed down orally.
Yeah.
But Charles Todd, maybe he's just a bit of a dumbass. Like, he needed it written down. I don't know. Or maybe it was all part of his deep, dark plan.
Yeah.
I remember being the thimble. I like that a lot.
There are, like, yeah, that's the whole thing about Monopoly is, like, people have, like, their own, like, each, like, family or whatever will have their own, like, little twists on the game or whatever. But,
Right.
So after Charles Todd, like, gets his hands on this thing, he basically decides, like, I made this now. I'm going to try to, like, pull myself out of the, you know, this jobless depression era moment that I'm in.
Yeah.
And
Did he look like the Monopoly man?
actually, he didn't. Not the Monopoly Man we know, but there was an original Monopoly Man character that was based on his likeness, which is, like, horrifying to look at because it just looks so different and it looks too realistic, like, in a way.
This is comparable to the Roy Kroc thing, right? How he, like, stole McDonald's from two incredibly successful dullards who'd figured out how to make hamburgers as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It is very much on that level. Except
Same wavelength.
Except the thing is it's I guess it's just as bad, but, like, Lizzy Magie got, like,
she basically had her little baby, her
was,
thing that she wanted to, like, use to, like, teach people about the.
She wasn't even trying to make money off of it.
She was trying to teach people with it, and then it got turned into, like, literally her anti-lesson.
Yes, it was the opposite of what she intended. It would be like if Roy Kroc, I don't know, what's the opposite of selling burgers at McDonald's?
He just, like, figured out a way to quickly make salads and distribute them to the masses at high prices.
He destroys hamburgers.
McDonald's became like a soy farm and tofu processing plant. I don't know.
I ate a veggie burger yesterday, just sort of randomly. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Cheers, kudos.
You're
man.
doing the work.
I think of when I hear soy
voting
carbs.
with your dollar. That's what progress really is, baby.
You're doing emotional labor.
I bought it from the convenience store and put it in a microwave for 1 minute.
Oh, yeah.
Go on.
It was delicious.
More details.
I had carrots.
Bowel movements. Come on. Let's hear it all.
Oh, my bowel movements are always fucked.
All right. Let's go. Okay. In steps, Parker Brothers. They have a failing company. It's like they're about to, like, shutter their doors and whatnot. And
right.
this Charles Darrow guy comes along one day and very quickly sells them on the game. And it instantly becomes like this huge financial success. It like saves the company. It makes Charles Darrow like a kind of a celebrity.
Yeah. And like a multi-millionaire, right?
Yeah. I mean, he became really rich.
He became the Monopoly man.
Yeah, he was. It was his face on the
For a short time, he had a monopoly on board games.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the other thing is that like games never sold this way, like ever. So it was kind of groundbreaking in that sense as well. But like we already kind of talked about, it just bears repeating. It's insane that like during the Great Depression is when a game about crushing your fellow man financially rose to such a heights of popularity. But yeah, it makes some weird, fucked up psychological sense too at the same time. So what ended up slowly happening was like word starts to get around to the Parker Brothers company that about the real origins of the game. Like they find out for sure that Charles Darrow didn't invent this fucking game.
Yeah.
Which means they've got to cover their asses. So they basically ask him to write up a history of the game. Like, how did he come up with the idea? And I got a feeling, again, this guy's just a real idiot who got lucky because like he just kind of said like, I don't want to write the history, and like he didn't do it. And like
amazing.
There's like a quote.
That's a Homer Simpson move right there.
There's a quote of him in the newspaper, like when they're asking him, like, "How did you come up with this game out of thin air?" And he's just like he doesn't know how to lie. He's just like, it was he called it a freak. That's what I remember. He's like, it's a real freak thing that happened. And like, there's like no more, like no follow-up questions. Okay.
It's like in the Hudsucker Proxy when he invents the hula hoop and then he can't invent anything else.
Yes. Great movie. Man, I wish I had like I should have written down like the Coen Brothers filmography and been checking them off. I think we're probably halfway through right now. It's a great thing. I'm all for it. So like they're trying to cover their asses, and part of the ass covering involves just like gobbling up, monopolizing, if you will, like every. Because then, of course, like a successful thing happens and immediately people try to replicate it and rip it off. So there's all these other games that are sort of similar start coming out.
Right.
There's one called and they have really unimaginative names. Finance, the game. Easy Money. One called Inflation. And they just bought up all of these for, really cheap, of course. Just to be like,
including the Landlord's game, right?
And then eventually, I believe they released Monopoly in like 35, could be 34 or 35 around.
Yeah.
Because like Darrow found out about the game in 34, and then by 1936, I guess Lizzy Magie. I mean, obviously she's hearing about this popular game, and imagine how you'd feel. Just suddenly you see this game that's exactly like the thing you made 34 years before.
Yeah,
I think. So she goes public about it.
And even at that, though, it took her a decade to come up with the idea. It took a shit ton of workshopping for her to figure it out.
Yeah, game design's hard.
Yeah, it said that she was she would just come home from her regular job as a stenographer and just stay up all night drawing and redrawing the outlines for the game, and because she wanted it to have an actual political message, and it did. It just reminds me I kind of want to play the Landlord's game, and I guess...
Yeah, right? I've been thinking that the whole time.
Apparently, and it's of no surprise, but some guy in Portland who's almost certainly the definition of some hipster guy, he's restoring the Landlord's game. So you can probably buy them online. They're probably, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it at all, but
he's a landlord himself.
Yeah, probably. He's like, he also misses the point of the game. He's like, it's about how landlords are cool, right, guys?
Yeah. His whole thing is it's vintage, and that's why he likes it.
Yeah, it's vintage, and I'm also a landlord.
It's my game. It's the landlord's game.
Yeah. The landlord's gambit.
So she goes public, and there's like a little. I think the only evidence of her going public is like a single newspaper article somewhere.
Right.
And I've seen the photo and part of the article, and in the photo she's holding up like the Monopoly board, and then she's holding up her like original landlord's game board that she made 30 some years ago, and she just looks fucking pissed. And by this time she's like
at that point she's like old, right?
She's very old. Yeah, like she didn't live too long after this, I don't think.
No, I think she died in the mid-40s or something.
Yeah, and so in the end, like, yeah, even Parker Brothers bought the patent to the landlord's game for $500.
Yeah,
no royalties. And,
and I've read that she actually spent more in court fees fighting them than she received from them.
She never actually fought them in court, though. We are getting to something about that, though. But like,
okay,
what she spent money on, though, if you can imagine, is think about just the time that she, like you said, like a decade maybe thinking about this game, designing it. But then just the money designing it, the time spent on it, but then like the patent fees, all kinds of shit like that. It's like, it's a certainty that she lost money on making this game.
Yeah.
She paid to get fucked over, basically.
That sounds like,
in the bad way.
That sounds like life is normal.
Yeah.
If you're paying money
for losers like us, maybe.
Exactly.
Then there's a time jump here into the 1970s, the wild 70s in Berkeley, California.
You should like put like some Van Halen in right here.
I don't know if it was early 70s. All I have here is 70s. But in any case, so this guy, Ralph Anspach, he was like an economics professor in Berkeley. So obviously some bit of a left-wing guy, probably. I mean, he was. Mm-hmm. Because we know this because he created a game called Anti-Monopoly.
Wow.
And he
really pulling his punches.
He, like everybody else in the world, had no idea who Lizzy Magie was or any of the history. Mm-hmm. He just knew that he saw Monopoly as a popular game and it pissed him off as a leftist, so he created Anti-Monopoly.
It's actually one of the first posts.
Yeah. And obviously the goal of the game was to break up monopolies, and the heroes of the game were like lefty lawyers, basically. Mary Pallon described them as like the Nader's Raiders guys, like in the late 60s and 70s, like Ralph Nader's merry band of like consumer advocates and whatnot. Mm. So like Anspach was like really concerned with things like OPEC and evil businesses and whatnot, monopolies, you might say.
Yeah.
And his game also becomes like a sort of underground countercultural sensation or whatever, sort of like at the turn of the century, Lizzy Magie's game was.
Yeah.
But then Parker Brothers finds out about this game, and of course they immediately take him to court. Or they issue like a cease and desist, And they had done this to other people who, so like, you know how nowadays there's like all those weird variants of Monopoly, like Simpsons Monopoly and all that shit?
Yeah.
Green's Monopoly, Spider-Man Monopoly.
Yeah, there's like everything you can think of Monopoly.
Fascist Monopoly.
But those are all obviously
Nazi-occupied
like
Albania Monopoly.
That's my favorite one, actually.
COVID Monopoly. Yeah. Well, all of those are like obviously like officially sanctioned and licensed, and the Parker Brothers, or I think they're like owned by Hasbro now, whatever. You know, they're getting their fucking cash on those. But there were games coming out like those that were, you know, not sanctioned. Like there was one apparently called Spaceopoly. And oh, this is the funny one. Some priest made one called Theopoly. I'd like to find that one. I wonder if that Portland hipster has it.
I'm sure.
So, but like those people, like the Theopoly man and the Spaceopoly man, they back down immediately because they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to fight, you know, Parker Brothers."
Yeah.
But this
Pete and Perry Parker are unbeatable.
This Ralph Anspach, no. He was like, fuck this shit. I mean, he maybe was a bit of an eccentric guy because he's just like, he ended up just taking on the Monopoly men in court for like a decade and like kind of ruined his life over it in a way.
It ended up in like the Supreme Court, didn't it?
It does, yes.
Wow, really?
Yes.
They went back and forth for a fucking decade. And he was just, and they tried to like buy him out. They were like, we'll give you a bunch of money. Just let this shit go. And he's like, no, fuck you. I'm allowed to make my anti-monopoly game.
I have a right to parody.
Right. And, but like during this process, during this 10-year thing, like, Anspach finds out about these true origins, all this shit we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's like livid about it. He wants to also like spread the word about it, which he starts to do while he's in court with Parker Brothers, which they obviously don't like that either. And, but he uses all of that history as a way of making his case in court to be like, so he like basically became like this like detective, even though he's just like a hippie economics professor. He was like going around interviewing all these people who were like super old by that point, who were like, "Oh, I played that Monopoly game in 1905. Like, or I have a copy of the rules here." And anyway, he links the 1904 patented Landlord's game to the 1935 patented Monopoly game, and just that helps prove his case in court in a way. One of the other funny like offshoots was like also during this decade in court, he found out that there were like Monopoly tournaments now happening like in the 70s. And I think more than once he and like a group of like his students went to these things to try to sabotage them. They were like fucking with the Monopoly tournaments,
like a Weather Underground situation.
Yeah, kind of a Weather Underground. Yeah. Except they weren't throwing bombs; they were throwing pamphlets that were like, "This is the truth about Monopoly," you know, which is literally what they did. Like, they said they went around and were putting pamphlets like under the Monopoly boards that like spelled out like, "Lizzy Magie really invented this, the landlord's game," blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
and all right, so moving along, like another quote from her book, from Mary Pallon's book here. So Anspach goes to trial and loses. Oh no. And before the appeal can be heard, Parker Brothers takes control of the 40,000 copies of Anti-Monopoly. This is where it gets good. And buries them in a landfill.
What?
What?
Just
oh my God.
Just
they've been sealed.
It's like the mob.
And okay, but not only that, they invited, like, they called all the mainstream press and held it as like as a burial event. They were just kind of like, they were just like it was just like stabbing the corpse. They're like, "Fuck you, on Spock, making us go to court for 10 years." And
that's the Cold War for you.
Yeah. It's just so crazily vindictive, but it gets better because, like, as you said, the Supreme Court gets involved. So
noted friends of socialists, the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah, well,
the Supreme Court's really fighting for parity rights.
That's
They are big fans of Weird Al.
I think that's the other thing is that, like, trademark law, copyright law, and all that shit are just like vastly different now than they were then in the 70s.
Oh yeah, they were created with the idea that there would be more than two companies, but they have been changed to reflect that.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. It was before Disney's lobbying arm really got going.
Exactly. It's the Mickey Mouse thing, right? He should have been in the public domain like 50 years ago.
I think it's more like 150 years ago.
Yeah, they just rewrite copyright law every couple of years to keep it safe.
Yeah.
So here's where Parker Brothers get a little comeuppance. So they bury 40,000 anti-monopoly games.
Oh my god.
And there's newspaper clippings of it. It's pretty hilarious. However, these assholes couldn't leave well enough alone and appealed to the Supreme Court. So they took this shit to the Supreme Court to like further stomp Spock into the ground.
Jesus.
So arguing that so they appealed to the Supreme Court, arguing that trademark law will be in shambles if games like anti-monopoly are allowed to exist. Supreme Court says, and this is my paraphrasing, "Shut the fuck up, bitch," and allows Spock to continue making the game and to continue speaking out about its origin. So happy ending. This guy wins in the long run.
Right.
But Spock, the eccentric that he must be, decides he wants to get those 40,000 games back. So he goes like searching for them. He's like just like digging holes around places, like looking for his games.
Yeah, oh my god, it's like when it's Walt and his money in Breaking Bad.
Yes, exactly. That is a perfect comparison. So he goes looking, and sadly, he ends up finding out that like condos have been like built over the area.
Jesus Christ.
Which means that there are still 40,000 anti-monopoly games buried under some condos somewhere. And as I editorialized here in my notes, hopefully some venture capitalists, lobbyists, or members of a legislative body have lived there and are being haunted by the souls of those anti-monopoly board games.
This is an anti-monopoly board burial ground.
That's more likely to bring about socialism through electoral means than regular politics ever will be. Board game hunting.
It's got to be some sort of The Shining scenario with board game souls.
Alright, I gotta piss again, boys. Let's go.
Yeah, Stephen King's writing a book about this right now.
Larry King was writing the book, but he got assassinated last night.
Was writing the book.
Yeah, very much was. I gotta wait to read this other part.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom as well.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom as well.
All right, me and you, buddy.
What's up, non-bathroom buddy? Should we piss our pants together in unison? Okay, so board games, used to be more like teaching tools than pure entertainment or recreation, and teaching often meant indoctrinating with propaganda. And I've got some clear examples of that come direct from the Third Reich.
Oh,
you want to hear?
Okay.
Do you want to hear about some Nazi board games?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I'm so afraid.
First up, this one's from 1936 called Juden raus, which means literally Jews out.
What?
Oh.
Amazing.
There's a long Wikipedia article about it. I mean, we don't even need to know the rules. Just know that it exists.
Yeah.
It was. Then there was another one, 1940. So these were like specifically targeted at like the Hitler Youth, because the youth like games.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a hot market.
There's another one 4 years later, 1940, called Bomber Uber England.
That's so cool.
I think I would enjoy that game. Fuck England.
Okay,
What are the air Nazis called again?
Sorry, what?
What are the air Nazis called? What's the German Air Force
the
called?
Luftwaffe?
I don't know. Whatever. Not important. But just
the
cosplaying, getting hunted by the RAF like above the English Canal.
So this game is just, the board is a map of England and part of Northern Europe. The map contains holes in the location of key cities such as London, Liverpool, Newcastle, and Plymouth. Players shoot spring-driven balls representing bombs at these targets and are awarded various points for hitting enough enemy targets. If players bomb locations under the control of Nazi Germany, such as Brussels and Amsterdam, they lose points.
That's awesome.
You fucked up. That's friendly fire. Go
I'd
back
love
to
to play that game.
If Germans love anything, it's rules. So I'm not surprised board games got real popular.
And as recently, I should say, as far along into like Nazi rule as 1944, there was another board game called Jagd auf Kohlenklau, which means hunting for the coal thief.
Oh, amazing.
Is a roll and move board game which was produced by blah 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 Nazi Germany. The game was part of a Nazi propaganda campaign that was launched in 1942 under the slogan Kampf dem Kohlenklau, or Fight the Coal Thief. This campaign sought to promote energy conservation as a means to save the country's dwindling resources for the war effort. Just that that one seems even more quintessentially German to me than even Jews out. Like, find the coal thief. Oh, where is the coal thief? He's stealing
let's
resources.
fight the cold by being cold all the time. Yeah.
The coal thief is like mismanagement.
Boy.
Holy shit! 4 million copies of Hunting for the Coal Thief were produced and distributed amongst the households with the most children. What?
It's so funny. So they created this board game. They gave it to all these farmers that did not know how to read in like Bavaria. And then when the Red Army comes marching through, they think it's some sort of anti-Russian thing. And then they just line up this creative Nazi, and he gets what he deserves. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh man, this game is just like, this is so German. It's all about punishing inefficiency. If your character, it says here,
McKinsey, the game.
It says exactly. Red spaces represent energy wasting actions that penalize players. For example, leaves the radio on when nobody is listening. The coal thief likes that. Miss a turn. Black spaces feature actions that conserve energy and reward the players. White spaces are neutral and have no effect. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy board games out there, everybody.
We've talked about Germany twice now. Do you guys know anything about like the current political climate in Germany?
I did tell you that the parliament is anti-BDS.
Yes, well, part of that is Germany's been run for like the last 30 years by the latest successor to the Nazi Party, the Christian Democratic Union, which is like which is a centrist leftist, not leftist, but a Democrat-esque party that has guided them. But now they have a right-wing reactionary party who wants to be the new successor to the Nazi Party, called the Alternative for Deutschland, which is winning support with, like, anti-migrant Bavarians and shit like that.
Wow.
Because of that, they've pulled the Christian Democratic Union even further to the right, so that's why we're getting, like, you know, anti-BDS shit from them now, and they're fighting the culture war now from the right-wing perspective as well, before they collapse like the Whigs.
Well, wasn't the party that basically was like a direct line to the Nazis, it was either called the Christian Social Party or the Social Christian Party?
Yes, and that is the direct predecessor to
yeah.
this.
I mean, they were like the super virulently like anti-Semitic, and that informed like everything about Hitler's politics, basically.
Yes.
Interesting. Are you?
It's great that they're still alive and kicking
the
today.
Nazis after the war.
So speaking of
and
Nazis,
they hate our podcast.
The makers of Monopoly.
Oh, okay.
What did you learn, Danny?
Do you guys want to finish up the Monopoly story here?
I would like to hear more about Monopoly.
That's your call, buddy.
So we ended it off in the 70s, right? When what's his name was trying to make a big deal out of the stolen aspect of it. Well, we're gonna move on a couple more decades to 2010 to this documentary I watched. It's called Under the Boardwalk, the Monopoly board game story, narrated by Zachary Levi of Shazam fame. You guys know that movie Shazam that we all
heard
love?
of
What the fuck?
I know of it.
That's the number one Philadelphia movie. Go Gritty.
Yeah.
Wait, Shazam set in Philadelphia?
Yes.
Now I might watch it.
Wait, I didn't know that. We saw it in theaters.
I might watch it now.
That's the one
I
where
didn't see it.
Sinbad played a genie, right?
Yes.
I did play a genie, but I never watch my work.
I understand.
So it like opens up on it's at the Monopoly World Championship in Las Vegas.
Of course, it's Las
hosted
Vegas.
by a big fat man who's dressed like the Monopoly Man and is on stage talking like the Monopoly Man.
What does
Monocle and all? Oh wait, isn't that's like
What
a
does he
myth.
talk
He
like?
doesn't really have the monocle.
he doesn't have a monocle? Of
He
course
does have a monocle, I think.
That was I heard that's one of
He has a
those
top hat.
Mandela effect things, is people remember it wrong.
Oh, maybe.
But
he
I
does.
don't know. I don't know
Definitely
if
has
it's
a top hat, one of those big mustaches.
Like,
yeah.
Like Sinbad being a genie in a movie is a Mandela effect?
Exactly.
Okay, but this is where like they go back to the initial intent of the game several times, and that like it's a documentary, so they're just interviewing a bunch of canned people that are like, you know, executives at Monopoly or just directly work for them. And so they interview the Monopoly man, and he says, "Oh golly, why does everyone love Monopoly? Because it's life." And it's like, that is what she was trying to say, but he's of
She
course
literally
like, very
said that,
happy
actually.
about it.
They love it. They love life. They love Monopoly.
Yeah.
Wait, I just
But
gotta.
whose
I
life
gotta,
is that? Who's buying properties out from under people?
right.
Bill Gates.
You and all your landlord friends staying in each other's properties so you go broke.
Yeah.
I gotta ask. Do they ever mention Lizzy Magie in the documentary?
They do mention her for about 2 minutes, where they're basically like, she was an activist, and she invented the game as an anti-capitalist game. And then what's-his-name found it, and he sold the rights and made it pro-capitalist. And that was basically all they had to say about it.
So their stance is probably like he modified it enough to where it's okay to call him like the inventor or some shit.
Yeah.
Stupid.
They only talk about him. They only talk about her for like 2 minutes. But they have a bunch of interviews with people, and they keep cutting to some guy whose title is Chief Judge of Monopoly. Not sure what the fuck that means.
He's
Cool
like
guy.
he's the judge, the ruler of Monopoly. He's their leader. They're Scorsese. They're
When he fucks his
referee.
wife, he calls himself the mayor of the bedroom, probably.
Yeah. They interview the 1995 Rhode Island Monopoly champion, who says, quote, "When I was 6, my grandmother told me if I paid attention in Monopoly, I would go very far in life."
Amazing.
Yeah.
Pay attention in Monopoly like it's a school class.
Now I'm curious about did Trump play Monopoly? Did the Koch brothers play Monopoly as kids?
Trump does not know how to play Monopoly.
Yeah, he seems too stupid.
Yeah.
Trump plays Monopoly in real life.
Why can't I just grab all the money from the other side?
Done.
Why can't I just grab it all?
It's just like you don't buy buildings with your own money. You buy it with Saudi blood money and Russian drug money, and you purposefully make the construction project never finish so the IRS doesn't audit it and they don't ask what happened to the money or why a tile costs $2 million.
Yeah.
That's a more complicated game though, so we have Monopoly.
Or he would just
he
would just say to the other players like, I'll let you write my name on that square.
Yes, exactly. In exchange for a small portion of this.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, so at this point they interview some guy that owns a website about board games or something like this. And so, what you got to keep in mind is everything that these people are saying are either fed to these people or entirely endorsed by, the Monopoly company or whatever.
Right.
He says, the point of Monopoly is to beat everyone else down and be the king of the mountain. I like the human interaction. This is them
reminds me of my
selling this
days
game.
at boarding school.
This is like the kind of freak who reads how to win friends and influence people or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
This is the secret one.
That's my favorite book, actually.
I just watched a documentary about the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Did he also have?
I imagine him. It's like him saying, "I like the human interaction of strangling people face to face, knifing them." It's almost on the same level.
Every single person that they interview, immediately they start out their interview by talking about how they distinctly remember their first time playing Monopoly. Tim Vandenberg, 6th grade teacher, cherishes his memories of family Monopoly because it was before his parents divorced, and so he uses Monopoly to teach his students math. It's a very...
His students do not know math.
No, according to the documentary, though I would take this with a big grain of salt, the students are gods at math. Absolutely god tier at math. The best in the school.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either.
There's not much math in Monopoly.
I was gonna say you're doing complex equations.
He holds up his board and it's like he has Sharpie written on every single plot, and it's like, yeah, he makes these kids play Monopoly, but they interview this big fat man in a Hawaiian t-shirt that's Monopoly themed that he explains that his mother made for him, and they're setting him up as this god at Monopoly. He's so incredible. And so they keep cutting to the stock footage they have of him playing Monopoly, but in maybe 3 separate situations, he is the only adult playing with a bunch of children. And they're just talking about how incredible he is at Monopoly.
So look at him go. He's demolishing these kids that can't read.
The guy's 60 years old. He's always wearing this one Hawaiian fucking shirt. And then out of nowhere, just completely out of nowhere, he appears in a suit, right? Just he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt the whole time. Then out of nowhere, he's in a suit. And then his name card, you know what I mean? His name card comes back up in the bottom right. And it introduces him as a lawyer instead of a Monopoly pro. And he then tries to get the
Fab Five got a hold of him.
He tries to get the 6th grade teacher disqualified on technicalities in the tournament that they're in.
Good.
It is the weirdest shit in the world.
That is that's very cutthroat of him, and the game does encourage being cutthroat.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's as far as I got in. This guy is, before they start the tournament, this guy is on camera calling every single person he's playing a cheater. He tries to get 2 or 3
because that's how Monopoly always ends.
Dude, it's so funny. But that's 20 minutes into that documentary.
Qualified. That's so fucking awesome.
Bullshit technicalities. Someone does something wrong on accident, some banal thing. It doesn't change the game
He forgot
at all.
to collect $200 after he passed goal.
Yeah, and then he writes
cheating.
Hasbro in his lawyer talk and gets these people disqualified. So yeah, that's what that documentary was.
The switch of title to lawyer that alone makes me want to fucking check this out. At least the first 20 minutes.
It was so fucking out of the blue, out of nowhere, because it was like they'd been establishing this guy for like 5 or 10 minutes. Then out of nowhere, he's a lawyer trying to get people fucking disqualified from the tournament.
He was undercover.
I like that he finds just like random groups of children to sit down and play Monopoly with to crush as he gets ready for his Las Vegas tournament.
This sounds
like he's knocking on neighbors' doors. It's like, you have kids, right? Get Timmy out here. I need someone to play Monopoly with.
I mean, this sounds like on the level of like a kind of homemade YouTube documentary, like on like 9/11 conspiracy theories, like that kind of level,
or just a fucking mockumentary, just a parody.
Right.
Like,
but it sounds like there was like no money put into this.
But you can't.
He's like Lorne Malvo. The kids are like Lester. They're like a side mission, but busting up these cheaters are the main job. It's the grocery store guy.
It does feel good to win games against kids, though. I understand where he's coming from.
Sympathetic to the lawyer / Monopoly pro.
It's just, I mean, you grow up with a game like Monopoly and you base your whole worldview on it.
Yeah.
I heard that Ayn Rand hugged a copy when she was a kid. Just slept with a copy of the board game in her bed.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end the official part of the podcast, at least. Yeah. Unless anyone has more to riff on about Monopoly, I feel like we've covered it all.
Yeah.
So in closing about Monopoly,
now,
it's fun.
It's Monopoly.
Yeah. It's fun. Go out and play it.
My last question. If you could organize a game of Monopoly between, like, any people, who would it be? Because I'd kind of like to see, like, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos finally sit down and play out their game of Monopoly. Settle this score.
Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Donald J. Trump, and whoever the rich asshole that owns LVMHs. Just all the richest people, and Trump, because he thinks he's the richest person.
No.
Because they would all get so angry every time they lose.
I would throw in a wild card, though. I would have Bezos, Musk, Trump, or, some other rich guy, Gates, and then just Bernie Sanders.
I'll tell you.
Bernie Sanders with a gun. Who wins?
I'll tell you who you get. Xi Jinping, Joe Biden, Juan Guaido, and Vladimir Putin.
All right, I'm on board for that.
Yeah, I'm on board for this. Risk was originally made as an anti-war game.
Have you guys heard about these Russian protests at all?
I saw a video.
Just briefly.
Yeah,
on
massive protests in favor of Navalny, who's like, I don't know, some guy who runs against Putin from the right or whatever. Really cool.
Nice.
Wait, from the right, okay.
Oh, so pro-democracy?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wow, I can't even tell which side's being supported by America anymore. This is beautiful.
Both.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of different combos of people playing Monopoly now. Just picturing basically like all the heavy hitters of the Communist Party and Soviet Russia. I just want to see Trotsky like slit Stalin's throat over Monopoly, something like that.
You take that back.
It's not a
vice
leftist
versa,
podcast
whatever.
without Trotsky-Stalin division, folks.
Well, boys, It's been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daz, thanks for having us on. It's been a great time.
Do you guys want to follow the tradition and recommend some shit?
Yeah, I will do that.
I'll recommend some shit.
Sure.
Okay. I got something in mind. I guess I can go first.
Yeah.
All right. I will recommend a movie called Network.
I love that movie.
Have you guys seen that movie? The 70s?
I don't think
so.
I I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
So the most famous scene is this like news broadcaster screaming at the camera, losing his mind, telling everyone to start screaming, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore." People start doing it. It's not a spoiler.
I think I know.
I've heard of it, I believe.
You've probably seen clips of this scene.
I recommend it. I watched it last night, and I'd seen it once before, but like when I saw it before, I was maybe too young to appreciate it. I think I just wanted to watch that famous scene.
It's so
and then
good.
like everything else was just like forgotten. But yeah, it's really good from beginning to end. Like, and it actually kind of ties into some of what we talked about in the episode today. Like, just in terms of the machinery of capitalism, like absorbing everything and like declawing it and turning it into a little widget, like the way that the Landlord's game was.
I'll have to check it out.
So it's like that, but with like network news, and it's kind of got like a surreal, might be too strong a word, but it's got like a real weird energy at certain points because I don't know. I don't want to say too much about it, but like one of the main characters like kind of goes crazy, but then they fire him, but then bring him back to like just rant at the camera for every episode because it's like a huge hit, but it's like the audience like just starts saying his catchphrase, "Hey everybody, how are you feeling today? We're mad as hell. We're not going to take it anymore." And it's just like like a Disney-fied version of this like actual I don't know, like dissatisfaction with modern life and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, definite recommend. Network, great movie.
Yeah, cool.
Definitely, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
It's fuck, now I'm forgetting his name. Really famous director. God damn it. I'll think of it in a second. Anybody else got something in mind?
We talked about board games all day, so I'll recommend one of my favorite board games from
Sidney Lumet, that's the director. I just remembered.
Yes, one of my favorite board games, Sidney Lumet, the board game where you work through the direction process of Network. The game's really hard, and it makes you mad as hell, and you don't feel like taking it anymore.
You win by flipping the board over.
No, so I guess maybe this doesn't technically count as a board game. Maybe it's a card game, but there's this collective storytelling game from Evil Hat called For the Queen, and it's probably one of my favorite games I've played in the past couple of years. But basically, you sit around a table with a group of friends, and you each have these different cards that you have to tell stories about, and you're all like a member of the Queen's Council, and you all have to prove that you're for the Queen. But there's
Oh, okay.
I want to say that it's not like Mafia, because like literally there is no like Mafia member, but you're all trying to prove each other that someone else is the Mafia member because you want to be the number one advisor. So it's more of like...
It's like a witch hunt.
Yeah, it's a witch hunt. So there's like, it's Mafia, but instead of there being a Mafia, you're trying to convince everyone else that that person is the Mafia, and like you have votes, and like it's just like collective.
It's kind of like Spyfall?
Yeah, sort of like Spyfall. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, cool. I'll definitely check that out.
Highly recommend
Absolutely.
I will recommend the book that I'm reading right now, The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. It's just fun.
Classic.
It's just a fun book.
It's a good one.
It's about
that guy's
like
kind of famous,
Russian noble people in the 1870s, which is when it was published, and it's just like it's funny. It's very funny for what it is, and the characters are incredible.
I've heard he's the Mark Twain of Russia.
Yeah, so that book's great.
I'm gonna recommend all the B-sides from The Cure's Head on the Door album.
Love it.
Go on your streaming platform of choice. Go to the Join the Dots album. Start with The Exploding Boy.
That's
Perfect.
Stop
Beautiful.
Dead's on that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Stop Dead. Great Cure song. Underrated.
Classic. Right now, I'm reading The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein.
Oh,
The Rise
perfect.
of Disaster Capitalism.
Such
This
a
is
good
one
book.
of the best books I've ever fucking bought. Yeah, Danny, you inspired me to finally bite the bullet and buy something. I'm very glad I
Very
did.
timely, that book.
Buying things.
Absolutely. Board
Unique
game-wise, play Catan. It's a much better board game than Monopoly. You win by, like, building long roads and the threat of force without ever actually taking something away from your friend.
Catan is so much fun.
Catan is so much fun. If you use the robber, you're a bitch. And if you want to watch something, watch Naruto. It's the best commentary on America, George Bush, 9/11, and God that was ever written.
God damn.
I'll counter with
Surpassing
Yu-Gi-Oh!
the
4
con-
Kids.
Okay,
Not as good
Yu-Gi-Oh!
as
4
One
Kids rocks,
Piece,
how they
but
have,
it
like,
is worth
guns
watching.
outside of the frames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the strongest recommendation I've ever heard.
For Naruto,
Yes.
at least.
George Bush and God? It's got everything.
It's about killing George Bush and God. It's very important.
Nice.
It's more important
becoming
than reading
them.
Marx.
Yeah.
Anyone who tells you you have to read their shitty Marx book to figure out that people need food, that's wrong. You need to watch Naruto and believe it.
I like that.
That's how I feel about One Piece, to be quite honest with you.
Dude, I haven't done it yet. Maybe one day I will. I only like anime that are 1,000 episodes long.
I mean, One Piece is the greatest
I think
anime ever made.
Isn't One Piece super long?
It's longer than Naruto.
Yeah, which is saying something.
It is saying
and
something.
it's still going.
It's still going. It's almost over. Oda's ending it soon. I shouldn't like One Piece as much as I do, but it's fucking incredible. Just fucking great. That's another recommendation that I've already recommended on Heat Death of the Universe before.
Cool. Unless anyone has other recommendations, you should recommend yourselves in the form of your podcast.
Hey, if you've listened through this whole thing and found us funny and not annoying, come listen to our podcast, Boomer Death Squad.
Yeah, and we forgot to say on our last episode that we would be appearing on Heat Death instead of posting today. So I'm going to make that clear right now. Head over to Heat Death of the Universe if you want to hear our weekly upload, because we're not going to upload today. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, this is plenty. You can follow us on Twitter at BoomerDeathPod. I've been Joe.
I've been Danny.
I've been Matt.
I just
Bye-bye.
realized we didn't introduce Matt when he came in.
yeah. And
We just
and the guy
assumed
who
he was
appeared
always
is Matt.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we said your name a bunch of times.
Yeah, we
so-
definitely said Matt like
It's
8
probably
times, but I don't know
clear.
if it was coherent.
Yeah.
We were just like,
yeah.
Matt.
I showed up for the Heat Boomer Death of a Loved One podcast.
Yes.
And
We need more puns.
you can find our hidden stockpile of the anti-capitalist game underneath heatdeathpod.com. That's where we buried them.
Absolutely.
Yes, we have things as well, which we always forget to say. Twitter at HeatDeathPod and a website, HeatDeathPod. What is it? HeatDeathPod.com. And that's it.
Cool.
All right. It's been a real fun time as usual, guys. Hopefully
Yeah,
we'll
thanks for
do it
having
again
us.
soon.
It's
All
lovely
right.
to
See
be
you
here.
guys.
Yeah, it's
Have a
been
good
good
night.
time. Thanks
Back
for
on
having
soon.
us.
Yeah, for sure.
Boom,
Boom.
my voice says make room.
Make room.
Wave a hand, combat the gloom. When the ache comes creeping up, I spread my arms so wide that soon my best starts to bloom with the breath that I consume. And I grow like grass on a hillside, it's the way I leave my tomb. Was it dark in there at all? It was dark, I must admit. Was it you that I heard call? It was me from yonder pit. Was it what you thought was you? It was me as someone else. I was crying out for you in high and girly swell. Is the gleam you thought was gone beginning to return? When you lay down on the lawn, can't you feel its fiery burn? See the rooftops in the sun, see the fading afternoon. Feel the tango come undone, hear the doobie-doo. Boom, boom. My voice says make room. Make room. Wave a hand, combat the gloom. When the dark slips in, I spread my arms so wide that I consume the depth of its doom. With the brightness I resume, and I grow green leaves on my branches. It's the way my blossoms bloom. Wasn't I the wind that blew? It was that what you allowed to come wildly rushing through. You became the gale that howled. Was it finally coming true? It had never ceased to be. Wasn't I the light that grew? Wasn't that light born in me? It was that what you had touched when you weren't trying to. It was how you made so much by forgetting what was you. See the rooftops in the sun, see the fading afternoon. Feel the tangle come undone, hear the doobie-doo. And like a mountain peak so high and stout, I blew my lid and blew my guts about. So I'm tall, I've always been, with flashing flood and whipping wind. I live with everything that I can't do without.
The first voice recording was made in 1860. It was a 10-second fragment of the French folk song Au clair de la lune, recorded by inventor Edward Leon Scott de Martinville. But who will make the final voice recording and when? What will it be? Who will hear it?